followers. It's not your follower count.
No, not at all.
Right.
Not at all.
So a lot of our community here, FUBU, shout out to y'all. How y'all doing? Right. So a lot of our community here are entrepreneurs, folks who aspire or are also inspired. What can you say to those out there who might have a crutch kind of in their way or a barrier saying like, hey, like I can't stop working because X? Or can you give any examples of how you've overcame, for example, your story about your $300,000 order that you couldn't fulfill? Yeah. Can you share that story with the audience?
Yeah, so the years of work. So when I first started FUBU, I closed it 3 times from 89 to 92 because I ran out of capital. But I always would run out of only $1,000, $2,000, and I was able to come back from that. I didn't bet the entire farm. When I would finally get $300,000 in orders, I got $300,000 in orders when I went to Vegas, and I stayed in a small little hotel room and had people come over to the hotel for the Magic Trade Show, which is our clothing industry show. I wrote $300,000 in orders. I go home, I don't have the money now. I got to make the clothes. I go to the banks. I got to turn down my 27 banks. My mother comes on to me and says, you've been working on this house as long as I have. Why don't we take the money we have in this house, take it out, you'll manufacture the clothes and deliver it, and put the money back in. This is all we have, right? Yeah, absolutely. I have no idea how she got a $100,000 loan in the house because the house is worth only $75,000. So today, I asked what she did for the rest of the money. So now I had to really sacrifice. And what was the sacrifice? Well, I'm 26 years old now, and I didn't go to college. I was the kid who thought I was too cool to go to college, and because I was on the tours with the rappers, like dancing and hanging out with them. I was like, I'll take that 1 year off, and that 1 year became forever. And then I'm 25 years old. I now have these orders. I'm still a waiter in Red Lobster. All those kids I laughed at that decided to further their education are coming back, and I'm serving them shrimp, and I got tartar sauce in my apron, and I'm feeling like an asshole. And I said to myself, what do I value and what I want to do? And I said, if I didn't put the time in college before, I got to put the time in now, because there's no way to escape the time you got to put in. So I didn't quit my day job. I worked at Red Lobster. I turned my house into a factory. It took us 2 weeks to sell or burn all the furniture we could. My mother moved out. I rented all the rooms, the 3 or 4 rooms I had upstairs. I rented them to people for $25 a week, for strangers. I slept in sleeping bags next to the sewing machines. I would get up at 6 o'clock in the morning.
So you started Airbnb?
I did. Yeah, for sure.
Take everything from it.
Yeah, man. I would get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I would answer the answer machines from orders that were left the day before. I would sew hats and call people back, and then I would drive around the city dropping them off to my key 8 stores that I had. I knew I couldn't expand to other stores. Then I'd go to Red Lobster, I'd get the one shift. I worked from 12 to about 10. I'd get back home at 12, and then I would do the same sewing hats up until 3 in the morning, and I'll start it all over again. I'll do it 7 days a week for 5 years. And the reason I did that, thank you, trust me, it hurt.
Wow.
The reason I did that is I couldn't quit my day job. All the people were lying to me saying, quit your day job, but if I left Red Lobster, I was making $30,000 a year, which is not a lot, but it added up to $150,000 over the 5 years. I had medical. I was taking all the food home, so I was reducing my food costs. And I would use sometimes the staff to come help me sell things at flea markets or whatever the case is, and they were like ambassadors because we were a bunch of waiters, and everybody just loved being part of a movement. So when people would see me putting in hard work like that, I would have other partners come into FUBU, and there's about 10. FUBU was a big 05. It stood for 5 partners. We ended up with 4 because we went through 10 to that 5th partner. They never stuck around, right? So the other ones built influence with me. So we negotiated deals, and then we're still here. So that's a quick skinny on that aspect of the story and why I did it. I just realized I had the fuel to do it at that time. I didn't have any kids. I didn't have any other responsibilities, and I had the energy to only go to sleep for 3 hours a night.
Now, did you see yourself fast forward on a show like Shark Tank? And by the way, you're representing millions of black people on that show.
Oh, thank you.
Are we going to take this deal? a little bit. Is this going to work out for us? So thank you for that, and obviously thank you for being a pioneer for young kids and generations, or even people. It doesn't matter the age. You inspire. Like, look, I came from these streets of Hollis, Queens. I had an idea. You didn't have a rich mom,
Right.
And you've had a number of hurdles, and nobody came and said, "Hey, like, I see you're struggling, kid. Let me buy all these shirts from you." Nobody did that for you, right?
No, it's quite the opposite. Where I grew up, like almost where everybody else grew up. '86 came around and crack devastated my neighborhood, and the entrepreneurs and the people we had to look up to were Supreme Team and drug dealers, and they were the entrepreneurs we thought were going. They were the only ones we saw. We didn't see anybody on TV that looked like us. I mean, the only entrepreneur we saw on TV didn't look like he was doing that great. I don't think Fred G. Sanford, the junk man, looked like he was doing that amazing, right? But you aspire to see these guys with the 98s and the Jettas and the fat robes and the leather jackets. You aspire to see that. And I would walk into little clubs, in Queens, and Rising to the Top would be playing, and all these cats would be coming in, and you would see all this drug money going around. And most of my friends went over to that side because we didn't think that there was anything else. Because we didn't see the heroes, the hardworking people in the neighborhood were getting their kids ready for school at 5 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning. They were going to their place of business. They were working until 10 o'clock at night. They were places like this trying to further their education, be around like-minded people. We didn't see them. And they also were conscious about how they had to handle their money. We didn't see them driving around in Mercedes-Benzes because they knew that 401ks may be more important, or investing in their real estate or their house or starting their business. We didn't get to see the glamorous life of that. So I was being drawn over to there because most of my friends went to there. And Hype Williams, I grew up with Hype Williams and Herb Gotti, and Hype ended up making a movie about our best friend called Belly. So I grew up with all these kids. And I had to fight not doing it. And back in the days in '89 when I first started, when these guys are like, "Yo, D, we're going up to 1018, or we're going to do this or go to that," and I'm like, "Well, I got this new strawberry pattern. I'm gonna stay home and make some hats." At that time, they thought I was gay, and I have no issue with anybody's sexual preference. But at that time, remember, we thought designers were all gay, right? Or gay Italians, you know what I mean? And they laughed at me. So I actually lost a reputation. My friends really stopped hanging with me and also I wouldn't go on them when they were taking those runs, and I knew they were dirty in the car and stuff like that. So it was harder on me from a social aspect as well, from a long period of time. But I knew I had to do something to get out of there, because if I looked at the numbers, I remember thinking about what a drug dealer makes. If a drug dealer makes just an average of a corner guy, if he makes $100,000 a year, but if out of 10 years, 4 years he's serving time, and he's looking over his back the other 6 years he's out, and he has to pay for legal fees, and he doesn't have any medical, he's making the same amount of money as a kid at McDonald's, right? So I was just doing my numbers and saying, the number doesn't work, and I'm not going to jail because I'm really, really cute. So I had to shift the power. It's funny. I can't talk like this in other cities and states, because maybe Houston or Atlanta, but because they don't know our lives. You know what I mean? They don't know what we've been through. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So, for you had a great partner in your household. Your mom, is she one of the five?
She's number one.
Okay, there you go. I just had to make sure. I remember you were going through a trial, and you were running back and forth throughout your business, and you couldn't get over the hump, and your mom said, "Hey, like, I need $2,000.
Yeah. So what happens after? So I didn't have financial intelligence, and the $100,000 that we got from the bank, I burned through the money, not knowing how money works. I was paying for raw goods 90 days ahead of time. It's a cash flow issue, like all businesses have. I was paying for staff and utilities and shipping, and my accounts receivables, the stores wouldn't pay me for 30, 60, 90 days. But again, I was going with what I thought was the norm. I didn't ask them for COD because I didn't want them to turn me down. Knowing now that the brand was super hot, I could have asked them for COD, right? I could have gotten advance on what we call floating the paper on the raw goods. So then I would only have to worry about my staff, utilities, and other things like that. And so I turn around, and I got $500 left in the bank, and I'm 3 months late on the mortgage, and they're going to take the house. And I felt at that point that I disappointed my mother. I felt that I put everything that she had at risk. and I was just an idiot. Like, what did I do wrong? And that there was no recovering from it. And then she comes and says, I have an idea. Give me $2,000. I go back to Red Lobster. I work.
You didn't ask any questions. That's mommy.
That's mom.
Okay.
Well, I want to come back with the $2,000. I said, what's this idea? And she's like, I'm going to take an ad in the newspaper for you. And I said, that's probably the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And I told her she cannot do it. I remember telling her, Ma, you can't do this and don't do it. I just worked for that $2,000 and I forbid you to do it. So you know what happens when you forbid a black woman to do something. So the ad was in the paper the next day. And the ad was $1 million in orders, definancing. Again, my mother was on Kickstarter 25, 30 years ago.
So your mom started Kickstarter. You started Airbnb.
So 33 people will call that ad, and 30 of them were, Pookie, rah-rah, Laquita, you know what I mean?
Yo, y'all need money?
You need some money, man? But 3 of them were real. One was Samsung's textile division. And they were also trying to figure out how to get into the market. They didn't know how to get into the market. So there was a strategic relationship that could happen. So again, as the negotiation went, Samsung told me that they would manufacture and distribute my clothes the same way that Arista will do that for a Diddy or somebody else. A lot of people had said, oh, Samsung owns your company? No, Samsung, I own my company. That's the manufacturing and distribution side. They can't ever take my company from me or hire or fire me. And the deal was that I had to sell $5 million worth of clothes in 3 years to keep the manufacturing and distribution deal, because if they set up the supply chain, how are they going to get their money back? So the negotiation was this. Listen, I don't want you to sell my clothes to the bottom barrel stores, because the kids in the hip hop world, they walk into a store and see the jeans at 80 there, and they go across the street and it's in Burlington Coat Factory for $10. Why would they ever pay 80? The Samsung said, no problem. But here's what we're going to do. Just be careful on the designs and the line you build, because we'll let you build anything you want. Any line you want. You want to put purple sleeves on them. You want one sleeve shorter than the next one. It's up to you. No problem. But if it doesn't sell in 90 days, I can unload these clothes at any place I want. What did that do? That made me more responsible on what I was going to order and buy and manufacture, and that gave them a feeling of trust that their downside would only be about this amount, because they knew that they can offload it to Burlington and things like that. You see, when you do a negotiation, it's always what's in the best interest of the other party. What was my best interest? I wanted to design my clothes, and I didn't want you to tell me what I could or could not do, because this is my company. What was their best interest? This is all my money. How am I going to make sure that my money's secured? And deals like that happen all the time, whether you're talking to your significant other or whether you're talking to your coworker. It's always what's in the best interest for both parties. And I wouldn't sell $5 million worth of clothes in 3 years. I would sell $30 million worth of clothes in 3 months. But remember, that 3 months, it took me 8 years to get to that 3 months. Be very careful about that thought process.
So the combination of your influence and your negotiations, put that deal in place with Samsung, and then fast forward, you get the $30 million in 3 months. Where does that take your deal moving forward, and where does that take the brand?
Well, the structure was already built, right? So my deal would, and I can tell you the downside. I don't want everything to sound, beautiful and this and that. The downside is this. It would take me to $350 million a year annually over the course of 6 years or 7 years over a period of time. We'd build a brand. Samsung obviously manufacture and distribute everything. But here's the flip side. When the stores were coming to us, we were hot as shit. So we would say, hey, first of all, we're only designing a line 4 times a year. Spring, summer, fall, and winter. When the ladies industry designed a line 10 times a year, but we said we're too cool, 4 times a year. Also, all the stores, you have to take a pre-pack, meaning a box of 12 jeans. Meaning you're gonna have to take in the box whatever the number is, 232s, 234s, 236, all up to 42, whatever the case is. And some of the stores are like, I don't have big customers. So we're like, that's your problem. Take the box. Or we'll open up an account right next door to you. And we're only gonna come out with a line 4 times a year, because sometimes the store will be like, okay, but the real fashionable kids that come in my store, the first month, if for the next 3 months the same shit, they don't come back in my store. They're like, yo, where's some new stuff? We're like, yo, you better sell out of it so they can get some new stuff. What would happen over that course of time? The stores that were forced to take in the pre-packs would now sell out of their 32s and 34s. They would now keep ordering the pre-packs, but they would have an overabundance of 38s, 40s, and 42s. After a while, they put them all on sale right in the corner. The kid's not looking at the style. All he's looking at is the name brand, and this pant over here that just came in is $70, and those are $10. I don't want to mess with the brand anymore. Then all of a sudden, we have this money coming, we have these goods coming in for the next summer or whatever the case is that aren't selling or this and that. My inventory grows to be $50 million of inventory that I can't sell, right? I'm paying real estate for the warehousing of this inventory. You know, if we have 1 million CDs, we can fill 1 million CDs in half of this theater. If we have 1 million units of FUBU size 42 pants, we need to take up this whole damn building. It's a lot of money. Then when I have to offload it, what if I made the jean for 12? The Burlington Coat Factories of the world, and those guys, they'd be like, it's cool, you made it for 12? I'll give you $2.50 for it. How about that? The $50 million in inventory ends up eating away at the profit over the last couple of years, and then it also corrodes the brand, because other brands would come out and say, we will open a pre-pack for you, no problem. We're gonna give you 10 deliveries, because all the things that FUBU's not doing, we're gonna do for you. We also would never create a bottom line that was, we would only be like, your pants can only be at 70. We don't sell basic jeans. So when we all grew up, if you were wearing a blank shirt, nobody really bothered you. But at that time when labels are so hot, you had to have some identity on your product, and you didn't want to wear counterfeit. So what happened? A brand called South Pole comes in and makes jeans for $30. So now the kid is like, FUBU 70, if I can't afford it, I'll get South Pole. FUBU 70, by the way, is on discount over here. I don't think I need that anymore. You already are in fashion, where the cycle is if a kid is wearing the product all during high school, they just want to have a new brand during college because they're a bigger boy or bigger girl, and that was 4 years. I got 4 years worth of FUBU. Now I want to look at Sean John or Crooks and Castles, or other thing like that. That was how the brand started to decline, because of egotistical ways of not nurturing the relationship and not doing in the negotiation what was in the best interest of all the parties. So it can happen in various different ways.
Thanks for getting vulnerable. So I had a pair of South Pole jeans and FUBU shirt. I was on it. That's my man's shirt. For us, by us. By the way, did you take offense to the How High movie when they kind of flip it?
Boo-foo?
Yeah.
I didn't take offense, but we sued him.
I respect.
We didn't win, but we had to put a shot over the bow.
Yeah, absolutely. We sued him. I respect. We sued him. So when did you personally feel like the power has shifted in your favor? Like, at what moment did you say, like, oh, like, we're on to something?
Well, at every given moment, I felt like we were on to something, we were growing, because the biggest plans we had was to hopefully have a boutique in Hollis, Queens, or 2 or 3 stores where all 4 of us our partners could work out of. So every single time that we had a small accomplishment, we would feel that there was something there. And like many business owners in this room, when you're 4, 5, 6 years in and you're so deep and you can't look back anymore, you're like, I'm in too deep. And we had to start researching ways to still get there.